We're here today talking with Cheri Steinkellner, who is the Tony-nominated co-book writer of the Broadway musical Sister Act, but she has a very long history in the business, much before that, and has continued since then. And Cheri, I'd love to start by talking about your roots when you started out in the theater in Los Angeles and how that led you to television, where you spent a lot of time.
Well, I began at the Groundlings long before it was the Groundlings, when it was just the Groundlings. And that's where I met my husband, Bill, and we began writing together. And the first piece that we put on stage was a long-form parody of Our Town called Our Place, and this was back during the LA Olympics. And so that's in the 80s. And what happened was people in the television world would show up at our little 30-seat theater and say, "You guys are funny. Have you ever thought about writing TV?" And it pays. So you can support your theater, Jones, by writing for television. And that's what we did for a lot of years. We started on the Jeffersons, and we were still improvising and writing stage plays. In fact, we moved from the Jeffersons over to Cheers, following David Lee and Peter Casey, who had been our producers on Jeffersons. And then after it ended, they moved over to Cheers in its 4th season. And we followed them very shortly after that. And at the same time that we were doing Cheers, we were putting up our first musical with an equity company. It was called Jailbirds on Broadway. Jeff Rizzo wrote the songs. Glenn Casal directed it. And lots and lots of people that you know and love had their early jobs in this. And that was in, I want to say, around 87.
Where did you do that, Cheri? Where did that, what theater did that take place in?
Started at the Cast Theater with Leland Ball directing it. And then we moved in time to, it was on Sunset Boulevard, the Tiffany.
Ah.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
So it was a beautiful space. And I can tell you that it was in 1987 because my daughter was crawling around after the opening night balloons in the lobby. So that's how I tell time anymore.
There you go. Well, our daughters are similar ages then. My daughter was born in 87.
So that was our first musical. And interestingly, Jeff Rizzo and Glenn Casal and Heather Lee and Billy and I got together recently and said, let's take another look at that. It might be fun.
Really? Do you think something might come of that?
I think something might come of that, and that would be a lot of fun. So we, in time, as we rose through the ranks on Cheers and became showrunners, we had to say goodbye and became parents of more children as well. We had to let theater go for a little while, actually about 20 years.
Yeah.
And then in the mid-90s, we moved to Santa Barbara and were invited to create a cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon series, which we did. It was called Teacher's Pet. And it starred the one and only Nathan Lane as the voice of a little dog who wants to go to 4th grade with his boy. So he puts on a hat and shorts and hides all his dog parts and becomes a 4th grader who talks like Nathan Lane. And when you've got Nathan Lane, you kind of have to use all the weapons in his arsenal. So we would put songs in, right and left. We would just write songs into the script and he would sing them and everyone was happy. And it ended up becoming a Disney feature film. And Tom Schumacher was working both sides. At the time, he was part of Disney feature animation and also Disney theatricals. Right. And said, hey, you guys are pretty good at this, writing into and out of songs. Would you like to take a look at writing a musical under the Disney umbrella? And they showed us the catalog, and Sister Act was among many films that weren't Disney films per se. It was a Buena Vista feature, but it was under their umbrella. And so we started pitching ideas about how we would adapt that movie musical to a stage musical. It's not without its challenges.
Yes.
So.
And you started working on that. Was the first place that was shown at the Pasadena Playhouse? I remember I saw it there. Was that very early on in the development?
It was so early on. It was the most premature of premature babies. I mean, we were on such an incredible fast track and then slowed down and caught up with ourselves later on. But yeah, that was really, really cool.
And when you say premature, did you feel like maybe it was on too fast a track and that isn't necessarily a healthy thing for the evolution of a new musical?
It's a great question. At the time, it was our first experience with a commercial musical. And so it felt just right. It felt exactly fast enough for our taste. We had a lot. I mean, it was an amazing partnership with Alan Menken and Glenn Slater, and Peter Schneider was directing, and Michael Reno was involved, and we had just a really marvelous time. Marguerite Derrick's choreographed the original production that you saw, and it was that kind of working under the wire was very exciting. It was thrilling. It's just that you haven't tested the material or before the critics come in.
Yeah.
We haven't had that chance to really hone it, work it, test it in front of audience after audience after audience, or to step back from it and go, what do we think of that? You're so busy creating so quickly.
Go ahead. So after the Pasadena Playhouse, you did have that moment to step back?
Very, very brief moment, because that production went to the Alliance Theater in Atlanta. That wasn't where we did the real work. It was just too quick. We went all the way back, dialed it all the way back to workshop when stage entertainment became involved, and we basically moved to Europe and opened it at the London Palladium Theatre. And that's where we went through a real workshop process with it.
So it opened in London and ran there before it came to Broadway?
It ran a year and a half at the London Palladium, yeah. And then it opened then we did another whole round of work on it, and it opened in Hamburg, Germany at one of Stage's theaters, and then it came back across the pond.
Wow, so it wound up being a long journey to Broadway, but then it must have been very exciting when you got your Tony nomination for the book.
I have to say it was very exciting. It was entirely unexpected. I wore my little magnetic button with an unbelievable amount of pride.
That's fantastic. So besides Sister Act, now I know you've written other musicals, and I'm sure you've got other ones up your sleeve. Can you talk to us a bit about Hello, My Baby, which is another show that I had the pleasure of seeing when it was produced out at the Rubicon Theater, and I know it's had quite a history and an ongoing one, I believe.
Yes. So Sister Act we were kind of buttoning up Sister Act, and one day I said to Mr. Menken, I love working with you. Let's do something else. And he said, great, get in line. You're about take a number. At any one time, Alan's spinning about 30 plays. He's got a lot going on and a lot of collaborators. And so I thought, I don't really want to wait. I'm kind of on fire. I want to work right now. And I can't think of any living composer that I know that I love the way I love Alan. So I went to the dead composers. I went to the Great American Songbook and was stunned and delighted to find that there was this treasure trove of songs that hadn't been sung in many a year. And I really wanted to create a piece because my kids were all in high school and college theater, and I wanted to create a piece that was going to have roles that would be really perfect for them and all of their friends and classmates to play, feature everybody would have a moment. And at the same time, and they could play characters like themselves, their age. You know, they weren't going to be Don Quixote or Tevye. They were going to be people their own age having their own problems, but 100 years ago. So I set it in at the turn of the 20th century. It was just before World War I. And in the world of the music pluggers, the kids who sold music by singing it on the streets and in public in order to sell it. And so it looked and sounded a lot like Newsies.
Yes, yes.
Before Newsies.
Yes. But you also brought in a lot of social elements because there was a lot about the tenement housing and the immigrant situation that was tied up in your main storyline.
There was that. There was a lot of gender questioning on the parts of many of the characters. So there were themes that felt modern, and at the same time, when you look at them, they also are age-old. I had no idea, because that was a piece that we took Hello My Baby, a group from Kenosha, Wisconsin, a public high school thespian troupe, took it to the International Thespian Festival in June 2015. And we played on a stage for several thousand high school theater kids from across the country. And it happened to be on June 26th, 2015, which I will never forget, because it was the day that the Supreme Court voted love wins and equal marriage rights.
Oh my.
And Hello My Baby has a strong theme of equal rights across all, all choices and all feelings. One of the ultimate lines in it is, one of the characters says, "Oh, Johnny, this is America. Love is for everyone." And I think we had about a 4-minute halt for applause. It was great.
It sounds incredible. Now, Hello My Baby, in essence, is a jukebox musical because you were using existing songs and fashioning a plot to around those songs. And as a dramaturg who does development, I often get people sending me jukebox musicals, and the tough thing about them is trying to figure out how to make the songs actually truly relevant, because what a lot of people tend to do is figure, well, if the hook of the song, "I Love Ya Baby," is right for the moment, then it doesn't matter if the lyrics later sound more like a father talking to his child, but you're now making it be a romantic relationship. That's okay because the hook is close enough. And I don't subscribe to that. I think you have to make sure that the lyrics absolutely 100% support the moment you're in, and that's difficult. Cheri, you did the most amazing job of that with Hello My Baby, with making those songs feel like the book came first and the songs were supporting the book. Which is an extraordinary feat, I think. How did you go about that, and did you have to do some reshaping of the lyrics in order to make that really work?
Thank you. And yes. The beauty of working with material in the public domain is that there is fair use and free use. And so knowing that I could really be called on the carpet by musical theater historians for changing and adding lyrics, I took that chance and went ahead. And I would say about 40%, maybe even more, of the lyrical material that you heard is originated in the 2000s.
Right.
But I worked really hard to make it seamless and to make the new material really feel like it just lived in that vernacular.
Yeah.
And started having so much fun with it that I started, doing more and more, because like you say, it not only has to feel like the whole song belongs to the moment, but it has to belong to the character who's singing it.
And it also has to not feel like you invented a moment to make a song work. I think a good example of that I can remember from your production is the Alice Blue Gown, because there are a lot of people that if they liked that song and wanted to put it in, they would just create some sort of random extra plot point that, oh, she's wearing a blue gown, just so they could sing that song. But I remember when that moment came, how incredibly incorporated it was in the moment that I went, oh my God, Alice Blue Gown works here, but it so is more. The fact that she's wearing the blue gown means so much more. You didn't just throw it in so you could do the song.
Well, that kind of puzzling and retrofitting, if you've got a lot of time on your hands, is really For me, that's a really fun way to work, is to make it work. It's the Rubik's Cube of the whole thing. It's how do we take this song, honor these lyrics, and create a situation where, like you said, where it is completely organic. It was so much fun. I could not have loved a process any more than that. It was just a joy.
And your attention to detail and your own wit really made that work really well. Now, you mentioned that that you were thinking of young people being able to perform this, and that you've had that opportunity. That segues really well into the fact that you do a lot of work with young people, Cheri, and from a performance standpoint and from a teaching standpoint. Can you talk a little bit about how that has worked its way into your life?
I just thought of this. When I went to high school, there was a theater department, but it was really just for the kids who were already. And so breaking into it was some kind of mystery that I never really cracked. I got lucky. I lived in Fullerton, California, and the year I was, I think, a freshman or sophomore, they started the Fullerton Civic Light Opera. And so there was this place where I could go and kind of participate as a kid in full musical theater. But I think because I missed the experience of doing it in high school, I'm rounding back now and having a vicarious thrill and really enjoying the experience of creating musicals and working with people that age. And here's the reason why. I know from my own experience, lo these many decades later, that the songs that I learned when I was in school, the shows that I did when I was in school, are still completely with me. I can do every breath of Fiddler on the Roof. I am like Mini Sprinza. I'll just put those potatoes on my head and I'm ready to go. So there's kind of a particular kind of sponge-like quality when you're really young. And so I wanted to create pieces that would be delicious for the kids to do and nutritious so that years later, when they grew up, these are great songs to take with you for life. And so that was kind of the idea behind Hello My Baby. It's like, let's give them something that's going to be a keeper for life and connect. Because those songs, the songs that I sang when I was a little girl, I've taught to my kids, to their kids, we pass it down legacy-like.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for that legacy, Cheri. That's fantastic. We've been asking everyone we're interviewing a sort of a fantasy question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning and suddenly someone had gifted you $100 million that you could use for the development of new musicals, yours and others, how would you go about spending that money?
Wow. That's wonderful. I think what I would like to do, what I'd like to put in front is developing young writers and young authors. I think one of the things that also happens when you're in school is when you write, even if you're writing creatively, it gets marked up and it gets turned back with a lot of red ink on it. And then you start going, oh, look at all these mistakes I made or things I could have done better. And I think I'd like to create an environment where people can do what I do in First Draft, which is create freely, fearlessly, no red ink, and see what happens next. Then, after it's all done, after you get to the end curtain, go back with real rigor and with mentors who are like you, dramaturgs, and redraft it. And I think that the idea of finding what is in there, what kids really are experiencing, what young theater-loving people are really experiencing, and bringing it out in a very safe way is the first thing I'd like to do. And in fact, I am doing it.
Yes, you are. It would just be nice to have more budget, right?
Yeah, I will say this, though. I think one of the best ways to learn is learning on a zero budget. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Setting that up. Sorry. Is creating on a zero budget. um, and having to use all your wit, all of your resources, whatever's in the closet, and figure it out. I just think it's super good training.
That's fantastic. So to wrap up, Cheri, this is a related question. Looking forward to what musical theater might be becoming in the future, what kind of advice would you give to writers who are currently working on the musicals of tomorrow?
Well, I think I'm just going to give advice to my taste. I love a feel-good musical, and I don't think we have nearly enough of them. We have lots of feel-bad musicals, lots of feel-hard musicals, but I like Pajama Game and Damn Yankees and going in to forget how difficult and painful the world is. And I think it's something we can do in musical theater better than any other form that I know, is just transport people and take them away. And I just see that as, at least in the immediate future, being a really good thing to shoot for, is help people have a good time.
Oh, well, that's a great idea, Cheri. Thank you for transporting us today into a little bit of your creative process. We really appreciate you spending the time with us, and we'll be watching to see what happens next with Hello, My Baby and your other projects. So thank you very much for chatting with us today, Cheri.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.